Hi, it's Paulie here. Whee! Summer Central. Look, like many of you poor benighted folk, I was raised on a series of tactical board games back in the 70s and 80s, and I still love those things. Hexes and counters are great fun. One of my favourites was Squad Leader. Squad Leader was sort of a definitive game of World War II land combat. A counter represented a section of guys, and you could add weapons to the section because it's a group of people. They could be carrying machine guns and things, and there was tanks, there was air support, there was radios. It was great. Hey, for some reason it's had a troubled history. It became Advanced Squad Leader, and Advanced Squad Leader is a very expensive system to get into. Yes, I know there is a starter set that is fairly cheap. Fact remains that if you want to actually play ASL, you have to purchase boards separate from counters, separate from rules, and the rules are very, very big and cover thousands of contingencies and whatever. So I went looking. I wanted something. What's the new ASL? What does that, but does it without that complexity, and most of all without that expense? I found something, and it's bloody good. The system is called Lock and Load. Now, Lock and Load, they do World War I, World War II, modern, 70s. They do Arab-Israeli wars, all sorts of things. They've got a core system which really works well. Their World War II ones are excellent. So, Lock and Load comes in nifty kind of period boxes like this. So, Heroes of Motherland. This is the Russian campaign stuff. And what I love about these, so substantial box. Oh, I love boxes. When you buy one of these campaign sets, you get a copy of the current rules for all of it. Now, these rules are actually, as you can see, they're pretty thin. They cover everything. They're great. They're clear. They're succinct. They have numerous examples that show how things work, and they're very, very logical. A campaign system like this, you will also get specific modules. There are build-ons, so like this is a series of maps and counters and extra units and new material. This is for Kursk. So this brings in like SS units and all this sort of stuff. Lovely. And of course we get tons and tons of maps and counters, and we get all the cheat sheets and tons of modules and everything you need to play. Now you can get expanded maps, X maps. These are much larger versions of the basic maps. So the basic maps have like inch wide hexes. The X maps are like twice that, way more detail. You're not kind of stacking counters quite as thinly. You can also, of course, replace the counters with 1/300 scale miniatures. This is a wonderful system for playing micro armor. It really is fairly cheap. Really good rules. So you can convert this over to miniatures, and you just convert a hex to like an inch or 2 or 3 inches on a tabletop. I've also got the other thing, because I'm obsessive. So like here is the Pacific. These are the rules for Pacific theatre. So all our Japanese counters, all our US Marines, Dutch, Australian troops, all this sort of stuff. It brings in all the rules for like Japanese charges and hand-to-hand and all this sort of thing, carrier-based support, and lovely. The rules themselves, okay, so how they work. Any good board game, essentially all of the information you need is going to be on the counter. These do exactly that. The counter has what range this unit can attack at, what its firepower is, it's got its morale, and there are special marks on that if they have special rules that apply to them. If this is a unit that breaks down easily, if this is a weapon that breaks easily, if this is a unit that has special assault movement rules, there's a very simple set of lists that show you this is what these color codes mean. It's not that confusing. So what you do is you are effectively, if you're attacking someone, you're rolling a d6 for the unit, but interestingly enough, you're rolling adversarially against the other guy. You roll with a bonus for your firepower and everything. Your opponent rolls with a bonus for the defensive characteristics of the terrain. And if the attacker beats the defender's roll, the severity of the difference between the dice now counts, because every single counter that the defender's got in that hex now has to roll to see what the effect on it is. And there's a little thing that you roll on, but the difference between those original hit and defense dice rolls acts on this roll that the guy's got. So if you've stacked things heavily, you've got a bunch of stuff in an area, and you really screw up on the defense roll, you can take some damage. But the adversarial role is kind of interesting. It means no one just has to kind of sit there and passively take it. You're actively involved in everything. And the dice kind of do leaven each other out a bit. This isn't a game where ridiculous dice rolls suddenly turn the tables. It's going to have to be a good plan and so on that you use. There are some really nice rules that I like. There's like crawl movement, so that units can just basically remain hidden but crawl very slowly through areas, so they're not like automatically seen. You have to spot units in a hex before you can fire at them, unless they're out in the open. So if someone's like working their way through woods and so on, even if you've got a line of sight on it, you've got to have someone spot it before people can open up. So having officers and individual characters attached to units is quite useful. You can use them for the spotting, and they direct fire, from their mortars, their machine guns, their infantry and so on. It's got a nice kind of realistic feel to it. It's got good simple rules for, support weapons, for tanks, for armor, for all these things are in there. But it does it without the massive, wordy, complex rules of Advanced Squad Leader. And that makes this an excellent buy, because you can teach it to someone in minutes, and you can be playing almost immediately without having to roam through books and try and figure out, well, how the hell do you do that? How do you do this? Cheat sheets in the back, but that basic essential dice roll of me roll with firepower, you roll with defense, and so on. Simple. There's some interesting little additional rules in this. You get skills and so on that you can attach onto units and so on to make colourful units and so on. If you're playing campaigns and so on, you can gain experience. But you can have people who are real diehards, or people who are brilliant marksmen, or guys who are like crazy in hand-to-hand combat. You can also have hero and scout characters attached. You can split scouts off from units. You get sort of individual heroes that can man weapons and add to the morale of units if they're around. So there's these sorts of things going on. I think this is a great buy. If you are looking, yearning for that cool tactical wargame experience, but didn't feel like taking a second job to be able to afford it, Lock and Load, check it out. Like I said, look, I've got the Russian one and I've got the Pacific one. They have an excellent one for Western Desert World War II, which has obviously Italians and British and so on. They have some great Normandy and through to the Rhine ones and so on. They've also got some very interesting ones for like Dien Bien Phu and sort of 50s and 60s, 70s combat. They've got some good stuff for Arab-Israeli wars. So obviously this system is very flexible and can apply to anything. But yeah, look, if you want those tactical board games back and you've got a yearning to get playing with hexes and dice again, Lock and Load, give it a try. Seriously, get out there playing. Cheers.